Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06 here on O'Connor and Company, and we're flying into our 8 o'clock hour, full steam ahead. Coming up at 30 minutes, Mollie Hemingway will be here from The Federalist. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. And we are... Good morning, Julie. We are dedicated to providing you news and information with a different delivery system than you'll get in the New York Times, Washington Post, or cable news networks. And to that end, we've got the fabulous Peter Schweizer here, president of the Government Accountability Institute, and he's also author of the best-selling Red-Handed: How American Elites Get Rich Helping China Win. Hey, Peter, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Larry. Good to be with you as always.
Much of your book focuses on not just the Biden family, but also many people in politics and in entertainment. And by the way, as is always Peter Schweizer's approach, not just one party or the other, it's across the board politically, who have dabbled with the corrupt enterprise of making money off of the Communist Party in China. I'm sure you'll be gratified to learn that today, Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post has officially given Joe Biden 4 Pinocchios for his statement 3 years ago that they never made money from China. So there you go. Finally, we get the truth out. Good for you, Glenn Kessler.
Yeah. I guess it's better late than never, but, incredibly late. And this is one of the most obvious things, that Joe Biden has lied about. But the list is extensive. And, I think that's the surprising thing to me. We understand that, a lot of journalists may have certain, ideological agendas. But, historically, reporters hate it when they're lied to. When they're lied to by political figures, They usually respond with a vengeance. We haven't seen that yet. We may see a change in it. But right now, the media continues to really soft pedal a story that to me is increasingly shocking in detail. Look at the testimony we got from Devin Archer, where he described how Hunter Biden and Burisma executives put a call into D.C. to get this Ukrainian prosecutor fired. So that's a statement of fact. Then you look at the other end, and you have Joe Biden bragging on video that he fired the prosecutor. Who do people think Hunter Biden called in D.C.? Some mid-level State Department bureaucrat? That, to me, is the clearest evidence of a quid pro quo crime. And yet the media is soft-pedaling that story or not even mentioning it.
And many of your books, Peter, you sort of detail how business in D.C. is done. And if you're watching, Joe Scarborough or other people, they pretend like, well, if Joe Biden didn't get on the phone and say, you betcha I'll change American policy in exchange for millions of dollars, then there's no evidence, right? But here, listen to Devin Archer. Last night, Devin Archer talking to Tucker Carlson.
To be, completely clear on the calls, I don't know if it was an orchestrated call in or not. It certainly was powerful, though, because, if you're sitting with a foreign business person and you hear the vice president's voice, that's prize enough. That's pretty impactful stuff.
Yeah, that's the prize. That's impactful. And a vice president, that's huge. But it's same with the senator, same with the congressman. Peter, you detail this, as I said, in many of your books. This is how influence is sold in this town.
Yes. Congressman Goldman, for example, from New York saying, they talked about the weather. It's nothing. He does the same thing, I'm sure, as every other political figure in D.C. that raises money. There's a lobbyist in the office. The congressman or senator comes by, shakes their hand. Hello, good to meet you. Yeah, good. Talk to the staff. He leaves. Then later, the campaign staff calls for a donation. Everybody knows what's going on. Yeah. Everybody knows that the access and the money are being exchanged. It's not as if the senator themselves in their Senate office are going to actually ask for the money. So it's disingenuous for them to continue to insist that this is not how it's done.
And it's so rude. The Democrats are really carrying this water too. They are basically suggesting that the American public is stupid and doesn't understand how this works. Larry and I earlier in the week talked about Biden at the time. I think he was vice president, going to Cafe Milano to just stop in at a table where Hunter is having dinner with a Russian oligarch. And, what kind of deviation that is from the regular route to going home, that's a major thing for the Secret Service to sweep the restaurant and to go in advance. And these aren't just last minute decisions, but the way that this is being portrayed by the media and Democrats is, oh, he just happened to walk in Cafe Milano and there was his son and he stopped by the table. Again, it suggests that the American people are stupid and don't understand how these things, everyone knows how this works in D.C.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. You carry the flag, and then the heavy lift is done for the business. And look, I mean, this is, Hunter Biden has admitted in the emails the reason that he got deals was because of his last name. It's not because these foreign nationals are fanboys that just, I love the Biden name, let's send them $1 million. It's because of what the last name represents and symbolizes. And so, there's a lot of dishonesty, unfortunately, in the reporting. And I think what people really want from the news media is just basic facts, reporting and facts. Don't give us the spin. And a lot of people, if you read the New York Times, you really still have really very little idea what people are even talking about.
Yeah. Incredibly uninformed population of this country get their news from the New York Times exclusively. Peter, listen, you're so good at making the case in all of your books. You make the case. It's very methodical. You've got the research. You've got the footnotes. You've got all of the evidence to back up the case that you make. If you were stepping in right now and advising those on the Oversight Committee, Judiciary Committee, Ways and Means, as they continue to put these pieces together, what is the next step for them in your mind, based on what you know of this investigation?
Well, the next step is for them to subpoena the phone records for a phone that Joe Biden was carrying. And we've actually given them the phone number. It's on the Hunter Biden laptop. Very interesting. This is a cell phone that Joe Biden carried. He got it in 2009, kept it through 2017. It's a phone number for a phone that was paid for not by Joe Biden. It's not a government phone. It's a phone that the Vice President of the United States was carrying that was paid for by his son's business. It was, in my mind, the back channel. So these conversations that are taking place, when you've got the head of Burisma saying, I've got, telephone recordings of Joe Biden. Okay, well, let's try to find the recordings. But we could actually see if Zalechevsky talked to Joe Biden, because I imagine it took place on this cell phone. That, I think, would be an important next step. We're also going to see other Hunter Biden business partners, in addition to Devon Archer, coming forward to testify and explain what they saw. One of them is a guy named Eric Schwerin. He's the guy that handled the money. Devon Archer was, I think, the business guy who sort of helped set up and structure the business. Okay. Eric Schwerin is the guy that handled the money.
Peter Schweizer. By the way, Schweizer, I saw you the other day. You were on the Megyn Kelly's great show. Really, it's got huge coverage. And she mentioned me. She was asking a question, and then she mentioned something that I had said and I had reported. That would have been a great opportunity for you, Schweitzer, to say, "Oh yeah, Megan, Larry and I are friends. We go way back. We're like buds." But you didn't even blink an eye. You didn't do anything.
I just said, "Hey, don't believe a thing Larry says."
Oh, there we go. There we go. Unbelievable.
Well done.
Thank you. By the way, a little birdie told me that you've got another book that's already sent to the publisher. It's going to be out in. By the way, the little birdie is Peter, who's trying to sell his book, and it's going to be out in January. What can you give us a quick hint of what that's going to be, or is that still under wraps?
It's under wraps. But I'd love to come back and talk about it in the future. But it's major new ground broken on a very, very serious problems that the country's facing, and the corruption involved as to why our leaders do not want to address it.
Well, let me tell you something. Every time the word is, and now that I've said it here on WMAL, there is a collective holding of breath on Capitol Hill right now when you find out that Schweitzer's got a new book coming out, and everyone's like, oh God, oh God, oh God. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you, Peter. Good to talk with you, my
Thanks,
friend.
Peter.
Great as always. Thanks.
It is 8:15 now. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5s. Here comes Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
It's here. Download the new WMAL app and listen anywhere you go, anytime you want.
There is no more odious politician in America. And by the way, that's saying something because we have a lot of odious politicians. But none more odious than the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I mean, honestly, it's like when he stands still, you feel like there's a puddle of slime collecting at his feet. He's just that despicable. And several months ago, he had challenged Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, to a debate. And, well, yesterday, Governor DeSantis, he complied. He has agreed to debating Gavin Newsom. It'll be California versus Florida. It'll be far-left liberal progressivism versus Ron DeSantis' brand of conservative republicanism. And let's not forget, Ron DeSantis is currently running for president. And the debates that he should be preparing for is against the other Republican candidates.
Yeah, so is Newsom. So,
well, I guess that's fair. He's an undeclared candidate. I mean, some people are seeing this as a preview of the 2028 presidential election. It could be a preview of the 2024 presidential election, too, depending on how things go. But do you think this is a good political calculation for DeSantis? Because say what you will about Gavin Newsom. He is slick. Before
I comment on that, I want to say, you notice that Newsom is never close to Biden because that guy would smother him with a pillow in a second. Okay,
the Secret Service won't let him do it.
Totally, and but still, I'm not gonna say anything, but I bet a lot of people would be like, lunch break. Anyway, look, I don't think this is a smart calculation. He really is a box of hair. He's an empty suit. He is not someone who can probably survive a true debate with someone like Ron DeSantis. So I don't think this is a smart political calculation. But I welcome
for
it.
Newsom. Now that's interesting. See, I wonder if it's a smart calculation for DeSantis. See, because what good can come? So, because here's the thing: if heaven forbid Newsom has a great night, because here's the problem with debating someone like Gavin Newsom: he's very slick. He's used to lying. He lies with such ease. And with such a smile on his face.
He does it to the media. He lies to the media. He lies to, like, there was a video of a young sort of, independent journalist questioning him, and he's smug and he lies. But I don't think against DeSantis, who has the data, who has the numbers, who knows these issues.
Okay.
I don't think that he'll be able to get away with those lies.
All right. Well,
you do, though.
He has in the past. If I'm Ron DeSantis, listen, DeSantis has already accepted the bid, and obviously he sees this as a way to elevate his campaign and elevate himself. And yes, if he can take out the bête noire of the Democratic Party, Gavin Newsom, and win, that's huge for him. It elevates him and it puts him back on track, I think. So I get it. It's definitely, he's swinging for the fences here. Okay. I think he's going for a major play. I would just suggest to Governor DeSantis and his team that for debate prep, he go back and watch over and over again Adam Carolla when he interviewed Gavin Newsom back, I believe when Newsom was either lieutenant governor or still mayor of San Francisco. I think he was lieutenant governor. Adam Carolla absolutely exposed Gavin Newsom for the fraud that he is.
But I think Gavin Newsom often does a lot of media with friendly media, which, I mean, that's most of media.
Well,
and so you get him in front of someone who isn't so friendly, and he falls apart.
Well, he just did an interview with Hannity, and I think most objective observers say, again, because Gavin Newsom is a slick oil salesman liar, he actually came out looking pretty good against Hannity.
That's true. Yeah.
So we shall see. That's my suggestion. Watch that Adam Carolla interview, and either way, I'm very interested in watching it. And I think it'll get a lot of eyeballs, and I think that this also shows a great contrast to Donald Trump, who won't even debate his fellow Republicans later this month. Yeah. The fact that DeSantis will. Do we have? Hang on. You know what? I'm going to share with you some of that Adam Carolla, Gavin Newsom interview in just a moment. Keep it here so you can hear it. It is all right. I mentioned that Governor DeSantis should look at this interview between Gavin Newsom and Adam Carolla as debate prep. Here's a little sample of it. Take a listen.
But think about it.
Don't have the kids.
Half of African Americans in the state of California, roughly half of Latino families, have no access to a checking account or an ATM. Things we take for granted. They don't have a check.
What's wrong with them?
Well, because they don't have the resources to sock those things away.
Why do we have them?
A lot of different reasons, but roughly half those families don't. And where do they
why
end
do
up?
Armenians have them?
But where they end up is in check cashing places.
But I want to know why those groups. Why those two groups don't have access?
Well, a lot of Just happens to be that. We can
So
talk
they're
about
flawed?
This. No, they're hardly flawed, but they're struggling.
Genetically
Folks are making
flawed.
their word. Hardly, not absolutely.
But okay,
not.
so but
Absolutely
do Asians have this problem?
I mean, a lot of communities have. A lot of whites have these problems.
Oh,
but
so that's not just black and Hispanic.
No, but I'm
why'd you
giving
bring up black and Hispanic?
Because the magnitude is ominous.
But why so many of them?
It just happens to be the
Just
magnitude.
that's the way God planned it?
Not at all.
Well, what happened to them?
There are a lot of issues, and that the communities are struggling. A lot
Why
of new
are they
immigrants.
struggling?
A lot of different reasons. Lack of
By the way, one other thing that Adam could have said is your party's have a lockhold of power in this state for decades. So if that's the case, how are you going to solve it? You've caused the problem. Here's a little bit more.
Face of welfare is not an African American family.
So it's Asian, Jewish, it's all of them.
Caucasian. It's
Okay,
a lot of
so
folks
we're all
in society.
struggling.
A lot of folks are struggling.
Okay.
But there are a lot of folks are
So if
struggling.
I go down to the check cashing place, lots of Jews and Asians.
There are.
Okay. All
Lot, I
right.
mean,
just checking
and-
you. Just
lot-
checking the math.
Absolute fact.
I'm
But-
just wondering why you singled those two out.
because the percentages, and I think these things matter, are profound.
So why? That's my question.
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons why. And
Yeah.
you want to go back to issues of racism? I'll do that. You want to go back to the debate we're having about the Voting Rights Act
Yeah.
and the fact the Supreme Court wants to take away Section
What about
5?
their families?
You want to no, but you want
wanna
to
talk
talk
about their families?
But I understand that families are incredibly important. That's certainly part of it,
Yeah,
and
it's
people have to be
a very
responsible.
small part of it. It's minuscule.
You know what? I've changed my mind. The debate's a good idea, but instead of DeSantis, how about Adam Carolla for president? All right, Mollie Hemingway from The Federalist is next.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:36. It's O'Connor and Company. Julie Gunlock. Meredith and I love where we live. It's a wonderful community, and I wouldn't want it any other way, and it's just perfect. But I got to tell you, once in a while, I am jealous of you living in Alexandria, only when you tell me that once in a while, if you're in the grocery store or at a restaurant, you happen to bump into Mark and Mollie Hemingway. It's like, see, now
yes,
that's...
and I do.
Yes, and that's cool. Because how cool would it be to just sort of bump into the Hemingways? And Mollie Hemingway, of course, editor-in-chief of The Federalist and author of Rigged, How the Media, Big Tech, and the Democrats Seized Our Elections. Boy, that was prescient. She joins us now. Good morning, Mollie.
Good morning. Great to be here with you.
You tweeted out yesterday that you're really glad you wrote this book, Rigged, and because so much of it is being validated today. We don't need the New York Times, Washington Post, Glenn Kessler, God forbid, to validate your great research and reporting, but there should be a little bit of smug satisfaction right now in your step.
I had a sense after the election that someone needed to look into what actually happened, who wasn't delving into crazy conspiracy theories or anything like that. But I don't know if I quite understood just how far the left was willing to go to keep people from talking about what was clearly the craziest election any of us lived through.
Right. I pointed out last week that, that Joe Biden's main argument during all of the Hunter Biden questions, which, by the way, were already there well before we knew of the existence of the laptop. He spent a year saying that he never talked to his son about his business, and then at the debate, breathtakingly in the debate, when challenged about making money from China, he said, my son and no one in my family ever made any money from China. Well, Mollie, how did he know his son ever made money from China if he never talked to his son about his business?
That would have been a good question for the moderator to ask right at that moment.
Thank you. Yeah. But it
Yeah.
never happened.
But
Yeah, well, Mollie, we have people coming around now. You have Maureen Dowd of the New York Times finally writing a column that Joe Biden has been ignoring his granddaughter for 4 years, and she just got around. You have David Brooks this morning talking, as the educated class here. He's sort of edged around the fact that, maybe we elites are making it worse for middle-class Americans. But, what do you say to that, when you see these columnists sort of kind of hedge a little bit and come around to the reality that all of us have recognized for for years and years?
Well, both of those columns are worth reading, so I don't want to take away from that. But
Sure.
It is so little and so late and
Mm-hmm.
so little compared to what we went through under the Trump administration, where every day was just hysteria and craziness from columnists calling for a 25th Amendment solution, how to oust the president, how to undermine him, supporting, anonymous little insurrections inside the federal government. And we are now really surprised when Maureen Dowd says, hey, by the way, when your claim to fame is that you're a family guy, you shouldn't be denying the existence of one of your grandchildren who did nothing wrong and did nothing to deserve this treatment from the family. Or when, it's like 10 years too late for David Brooks to be like, wait, are the people angry that we have destroyed the country? Is that what's going on?
Mollie Hemingway is our guest from The Federalist and, of course, Fox News Channel. Here's the New York Times on March 31st talking about the progress of the January 6th investigation. I'm going to quote it to you, and I'll just let you react in real time. In the past, Mr. Biden privately told his close circle of advisors that Mr. Trump posed a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted for his role in the events of January 6th, according to two people familiar with his comments. In other words, two people from Biden's close circle leaked this to the Times. And let me continue. He also told confidence that he wanted Attorney General Merrick Garland to stop acting like a ponderous judge and take decisive action. Now, this is trademark how things work in this town, Mollie, because instead of Joe Biden picking up the phone and saying that to Merrick Garland, he has people leak it to the New York Times. It's in the New York Times. Merrick Garland sees it, and, well, what happened next?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I think people had forgotten that this happened, and there are two massive problems with it. One, this is insane that Joe Biden is seeking to imprison his top political opponent.
Yeah.
It's the type of thing we associate with Vladimir Putin or other tyrannical authoritarians, and it should be condemned by everyone, even Donald Trump. He spent his entire 2016 campaign leading people in chants of lock her up for what Hillary had done with various crimes. And then when he was elected, he said, actually, I don't think it's good for the country to go after your political opponent. So Joe Biden is falling way, way, way below the Donald Trump moral standard when he's doing this kind of operation with the New York Times. But exactly, so he communicates through the Times and tells them he wants his top political opponent gone after. During the Trump administration, if Donald Trump said publicly, by the way, this Russia collusion hoax is a witch hunt after me, everybody, including some Senate Republicans, would say, that's obstructing justice.
Yeah.
But here, Joe Biden goes to the New York Times, says it. He could have corrected it. He first started saying this in 2022. If it were wrong and if it weren't coming directly from him, he would have said so. And nobody said anything about it being obstruction of justice or meddling with justice.
So how do you, as the Republican primary process unfolds, and like you, Mollie, I'm spending most of my time focusing on Biden and what's developing here in Washington, D.C. and the palpable hypocrisy as well as corruption that we see. But we do have this Republican primary challenge going on, and it seems to me it's a real challenge for the other Republican candidates to be able to say, listen, I liked President Trump's policies. I supported his presidency. I was even in his cabinet, or I was his ambassador to the UN or what have you. But now it's my turn. Here's why I should be the guy or gal. And it seems like none of them are able to make that political case.
I kind of feel like the only one who's doing that is Vivek Ramaswamy. He says, I loved Donald Trump. I think he's great. And then here's why I think I can do it better. Everyone else seems to think the way to beat the guy who was the twice most recent nominee and who was supported by 90% of the party and whose policies everybody liked is to attack him. And I understand the difficulty of not doing that, particularly when he's attacking you, but it doesn't seem to be a strategy that's working very well. I think Republican voters want someone who does not attack Donald Trump. He's got plenty of attacks going on, but maybe someone who attacks the permanent D.C. class or the Democrats or other people that Republicans are more inclined to see you attack.
For sure.
Well, but I'm also wondering why people aren't a little bit more like Vivek. Why DeSantis doesn't say, hey, I'm going to pardon him and I'm going to go after these bureaucrats who went after him. I don't feel that there's that sort of strong commitment from DeSantis. Is he sort of afraid to sort of fully embrace that? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I don't know, and I don't know enough from him to say, but I am very curious about that as well. I've talked to people on the campaign who sense that it's a donor-related issue, that he's got a lot of donors who hate Trump, and so if if he says too much in defense, or just that he thinks the strategy is to sort of lean into the persecution of Trump or remind people of it. But he actually he always up until like a year ago was excellent on all of these issues, very clear in how he talked about it. He wouldn't say like, oh, the DOJ is bad, but Trump is bad too. He would just really be laser focused. So there's been a change that I don't understand, actually, and I don't know if it's serving him well.
Friend of the program, Mollie Hemingway, thanks for joining us as always. Great work at the Federalist and on Fox. And give our best to Mark, who's also doing some great work right now.
Will do. Love you guys.
Thank you. 8:45, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the Fives with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Traffic is brought to you by Jiffy Lube.
It's 8:50 now, Julie Gunlock, and I don't know why this is such a big deal, but you know how Elon Musk changed his name of Twitter to X, right?
Right.
And
right.
I just got shook now where you don't retweet anymore. When you go to retweet something, it doesn't say retweet; it says repost.
Well, I go on my phone and I can't find the app because it's an X instead of a bird.
Yeah, that takes you a few days to find. Yeah, it's a little disconcerting, but we're all adapting to the fact that it's X and we don't tweet anymore; we post on X. Anyway, to celebrate, the headquarters are in downtown San Francisco, so they erected this new sign on the top of the building. It's a big lit up X, right? It's part of the skyline. And, well, I'll let Greg Gutfeld take the story from there.
They can rob, assault, and burglarize cars, but Elon's X, that goes too far. San Francisco officials have filed a complaint against Twitter and are investigating this big, bright X sign on the roof of what used to be the social media company's headquarters in downtown for a possible permit violation. So what does the X mean? No, it's not marking the only spot in town that hasn't been pooped on yet. Of course, police stopped it because if there's anything police have in San Francisco, it's a lot of free time. And this morning, the sign was taken down. But maybe authorities should be focused on more pressing issues like, maybe the homeless. And it's bad when people in tents are reporting home invasions. Of course, there's the crime. Even murderers are moving out because they don't feel safe. Poor guys. Homicides are up 23% from last year. Hell, they're actually running low on potential victims. Robberies are up 13%. It's hard to believe there's anything left to steal. And auto theft is up 10.5%. But instead, San Fran targets Elon's sign. Officials say replacing or installing a giant one on top requires a permit. Ironically, something that doesn't require a permit, taking a dump on the sidewalk.
Yeah, and by the way, it's good stuff, and it's a great story, but I also want to point out that neither Jimmy Kimmel, nor Jimmy Fallon, nor Stephen Colbert, or Eddie of the Late Night Comedians actually found any humor. I mean, that's all those jokes are great. But they can't bring themselves to make those jokes.
The jokes write themselves. You can take a dump on the city street, but you can't put a giant X on a building. I wonder when Musk is going to move out of San Fran.
He said he's committed to staying there. He actually did this. This was brought up, and he said, no, we're absolutely going to stay there. By the way, the Babylon Bee's take on this is pretty good as well. Of course, they can find humor in it. But San Francisco demands Elon Musk remove bright sign as it's disturbing people trying to poop on the street. See, there you go. And I would just add, I've been to San Francisco quite a bit in my youth. Trust me, there's a lot of places in certain neighborhoods that have X's glowing on the outside. And you don't want to go anywhere near that. It's a very different, and that's
a
allowed.
different kind of X.
But that's
and I think there are multiple X's.
Yeah. It's 8:53. It's 9 o'clock time for the Chris Plant